This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising Air Force and community leaders who seek to define the future. Learn powerful work and life tactics to tackle any challenge. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabrock Avila. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody. Gabrock back on the mic once again. Hope you guys, we're in March. We're in March and it's still cold outside. It's still windy outside, but at least there's no ice or snow here in Maryland. And so I hope wherever you're at that you have minimal disruptive weather, right? If you're in the Texas or you're having on the East Coast and having some of that significant weather, hopefully all of that's past us. But yeah, we made it to March. And so the calendar of 2021 goes along. And I just actually happened to notice that I'm coming up to like a year of telework, right? And so like almost a year. And so I wanted to bring on someone this week that I thought was going to have a really good perspective as far as what we need to be thinking about as we start taking the right, hopefully everyone's making those right choices in order to get us on the other side of the pandemic. But what is going to be the smart way to get on that side, and where should we as leaders kind of position ourselves and take advantage of some of the stuff that has happened and then carry those things forward. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Grygo to the show. Kyle, homie, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So Kyle is a fellow cyberspace operations officer. And we met, we actually met when we were both serving, right? In command?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was we were both in PACAF. And so that was where I was at J-Bear and you were at where?
I was at Anderson in Guam.
Guam. Yep. Okay. And so whenever we had like PACAF commanders conference, there is a small number of us that we actually email back and forth to just kind of talking about some of the things that are going on, how we approach things. It's always good to have somebody on email dial or whatever it is to kind of talk about stuff command wise. And then so like as time goes on, I'm here at Fort Meade. And then where are you currently stationed at now?
I am currently in the Pentagon in the A57, now being called Air Force Futures.
Okay, cool. And so Kyle has actually been like him and I over this last year, he has been in the forefront, at least as understanding some of the leadership conversations and things and how we have kind of gone through this entire telework kind of phase during the global pandemic. And so one of my my current mentors, shout out to Thumper, he was asking me a question about like, hey, so how do you think leaders are going to be communicating as we start to return, have the options or whatever you want to call it, to return back to the workplace, the physical workplace, I should say. How should leaders communicate with their teams, right? And it's a very broad and open-ended question because we need to approach that from several different angles. So I started to text him back. I was like, hold on, I think it's just going to be because I'm partially lazy. I was like, it's just easier for me to make this a podcast episode. But let me bring on someone that has really good insight to what's going on. And Kyle definitely can give some insight here. And so I'll start off to say like, here's how we'll start off the question. And so as the audience know, Kyle, as you know, like telework has definitely accelerated both the Air Force and the DoD's needs to adapt, right? Our workforce needed to have telework capabilities. And so we had to make sure those things are coming online. Lots of tools. I'll say lots of things happen, both official and unofficial. I think this is important to distinguish between both of those. So they got incorporated into your daily battle rhythm. Before we started recording, I told you, I was like, dude, I'm so used to telework now. I'm so used to going in the office for the first half and telework in the second half. Both my professional and personal lives have gotten more efficient and better, for example, I should say. So as positive progress starts to happen, how do you think leaders should approach communication with their teams as people start to come back to work?
Well, so the first thing I would say is I'd like to counter the people start to come back to work, right? I really like to think that this is a new way of working, right? A new life, kind of we were talking about, that telework is now a part of life. We've proven that we can be successful, right? That we can live in this environment and we can still accomplish the mission in a telework environment. So I just want to make sure that as leaders, right, as we go forward and we think about this, that we resist the urge to just say everyone back to the office. right? Back to the pre-COVID way. Everyone, I expect you here in your seat at 0730, and I expect you to stay at that seat until 1700. You know, I mean, I think we need to be a little more flexible with our people, right? Given these tools that exist, and try to get that better work-life balance and enable that for our people. Many advantages we've seen with being near family, being able to be there, supportive of our family during telework more immediately than if I was at the office. And also just having less commute, a little more time to ourselves, a little more time to think, and so it's an incredible new world I think we're going to be in. So I just like to say that is, let's caution on back to the pre-COVID days. Let's use the tools that are available, and let's find a way to give that balance. And telework some days, and in the office other days when necessary.
Yeah, I definitely think that I think people are just they're allergic, or they really, really hate the phrase like new normal. We're gonna have to come up with something else, because it's just we're sick of it. Like, goddamn, we're not gonna be there's no such thing as that. It's just like, how do we continue our path? I think that's it, right? It's going to be a thing of, yep. So now that all of these telework tools are out there, and then now they're available, so then how do we smartly, and not only just from a leadership level, like, you got to understand that, like, at the as you continue to go down the echelons, they've all adjusted too, right? I mean, like, arguably, as we at higher leadership levels, our stuff is still very office like, right? We are not necessarily in a customer service kind of thing, or we're not on the front lines, on the flight line, or working on security forces stuff, or any of the traditional things you see at a regular Air Force base. Depending on what it is, you're going to have some flexibility, which means, like, some of the real estate potentially on base doesn't need to take all of that space, like, and you have direct cost savings of that. I don't need to pay for all these buildings and utilities and all those things, because I figured out a way to kind of minimize my footprint and arguably save taxpayer money, because I'm able to sort of absorb that into my daily processes, whatever it is in my house, yet still be very, very effective in completing the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And just an example here in the Pentagon, right? So there's not enough space in the Pentagon for everybody that needs to be here physically. And so pre-COVID, right, paying astronomical prices to rent space in Crystal City, Pentagon City, for people to work out of, satellite offices. That's another cost passed on to the taxpayer that we don't have to have anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I will potentially take a Pentagon assignment if I don't have to go into the Pentagon. Or there's part of our business just requires, I'm not saying never go. I'm saying, like, there's definitely the positives. I miss certain physical interaction with people, right? I've talked about this a couple of times. I'm a huge whiteboard kind of person, right? So I'll go in there. I love locking people in a room, like, hey, let's kind of sketch out this whole thing and figure it out. I can't do that. I can't. Either I'm not smart enough, probably true, but, like, it's not as efficient using electronic means. There's certain ways I can do that, but I want to have that option to be like, hey, so let's all meet up on Wednesday at this time, and then you have a deliberate time where you're going to meet, and you can be very, very effective in person, and that's great. But, like, there is a the idea of having the option, I think, would be really cool. And I think that, to your point earlier, like, you got to think about those things. You have to be open to the idea of there's this blend, this hybrid model that can be effective if you smartly understand all the options that are available.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it takes leadership, analyzing your mission, analyzing your requirements. What do you have to be in for? What are those key moments where you need to be in? What can be done remotely? What can be done more effective remotely? What can be done more effectively in person, in the office, or in the building, or in the field? Again, we've at our stages in our career, we're very office oriented right now. So I think that's kind of where my mindset is. But acknowledging that a vast majority of airmen, flight line airmen, aren't sitting in an office, and there is going to be work that can't be done via telework, right? You can't maintain an F-35 via Teams.
Yep. Yeah, you better not be able to do that. The idea of I think so. Here I'll post my second question. So let's focus, kind of narrow down the conversation to, like, official tools, right? So the official tools that have come out, and either the Air Force or the DoD, and they push those things out to be like, here's where we want you to use. We're going to provide these, and say these are going to be where we want to have not center of gravity, but we want a lot of people to use, because this is how we can. We are leveraging already proven corporate solutions out there. But like, yeah, so we can just use those kind of things as well. So up to this point, what do you think was what did you see as the intent behind pushing out these tools, and then has that intent been met?
Yeah, so let me start with, I don't consider myself an expert in this by any means, but I did have a unique opportunity last year, prior to going into the telework environment. I was the executive officer with Mr. William Marion, the deputy CIO at the time for the Air Force, as the COVID pandemic was hitting. And so I got to see kind of at the enterprise level from a CIO perspective, how we, bam, we shifted into telework overnight. And then, this also the competition of tools that kind of went on until we settled on one that was delivered by the DoD. So that's kind of my context, where I came from and where I got interested. And then I've really just tried to stay up with what's going on, as we go forward. So, at the time, there was actually, it was almost like a knife fight. So everyone came in, right? So prior to COVID, from my perspective, a lot of different commands had different solutions that they were working on. AFSOC was already particularly interested in Wicker RAM. They invested some money in that, and were using that as a solution to communicate amongst AFSOC. Some people were using Slack. There was Matters Most, which is another capability that's provided by Platform One, which is being used by the developers and those in Kessel Run and some others. And so all these tools kind of existed out there in different communities. The Air Force tool at the time that we were migrating to was the Office 365 Teams environment. And so, but that was only available, on the net. You had to be, VPN'd in or on the net, with your TAC and logged in to that environment to access it. And so what happened is we rapidly went into telework. All of a sudden there's interest in each one of these communities came forward and were trying to push, their tool. They're like, this is the tool we want. AFSOC in particular, frankly, was calling to the chief of staff of the Air Force, calling up his exec, right, and calling up the comm support to the chief and saying, go install this Wicker on his computer right now. We need to get him on board.
Just message him directly,
right?
That's a way to do it.
Yeah. So they're trying to get it on his computer, right? So that then they could get that lock in and then try to get enterprise support for it. So these are the kind of things that were going on.
Oh, okay.
So it was a really interesting time. But what then came forward is the DoD CIO and DISA, in partnership with Microsoft, came forward with CVR, Commercial Virtual Remote, which many of us are still using today. And so that was deployed very rapidly. It's Microsoft Teams. It's called CVR for branding purposes.
Sure.
But it was given from the DoD across all of the services. And so instantly, within a matter of weeks, onboarded everybody who's in the GAL across the services into this environment, username and password. You could put it on a personal mobile device. You could get to it from NIPRNet in the office. And so it instantly provided this capability for cross communication of, if you're still in the office for certain reasons, on net, you could communicate with people who are outside in telework environment, maybe a mobile on their personal device, and username and password. So you didn't have to CAC in. So it gave very ease of access, a lot of capability, right? Texting, direct messaging, video,
industry proven capabilities that have existed for a long time.
Right. Stuff we probably should have had some time ago, but anyway.
Probably, but beside the point.
Besides the point. And then, add on, it also had file sharing. You could store files in the cloud. You could have collaboration using the Office Productivity Suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other things. It became this instantly powerful tool, right, in my opinion, that people latched onto. It took a little bit of getting used to it.
Learning curve was a little bit. It went fast, right? I saw some things where like, hey, so what do I do? Like, well, first just get there. I was a champion for JVX Udoden, and I kind of had to first. There's a lot of good I'll say that the marketing of it all, there was a lot of good FAQs trying to help people understand where they need to. How come I don't have an account? Well, you need to make sure your email is correct in the gal, and then you'll get a link, all that jazz. And so, like any kind of mass onboarding of a tool, it has the rough spots, but that's the exception. By all means, you just kind of like, you're in the team, like, holy crap, what can I do here? And then you're trying to figure out, like, can I share files? Hell yeah. Oh, this is way easier than like SharePoint. Like, oh, I could just call you. I could call you like from a thing. Yes, you could call me. Wow. Okay.
And so, look, we're both editing the same document. Look,
yeah.
I just typed something. Oh, wow, look at that. I saw it. That's cool.
Whoa. Wait, I can send you a meme, like a directly, like a meme, like a GIF. Like, holy crap. I remember that being like one of the most powerful things. I'm like, we're going to have this chat only. It's memes only. You better be able to communicate with memes, and that's it. And so, but it was just a thing of, that was a positive thing, right? We saw the change, like you said earlier. Arguably, we should have had some of these capabilities that the industry has had has had for some time. So it just accelerated that, right? It just kind of forced us to get to use it, because that's what the workforce at large needed to have. And so I think as the tool started to get to use, but like there was from kind of like there's like anything else, there's two sides to every story. So as the capabilities being deployed out and everybody's kind of understanding, like, oh, this is really, really cool, there's these other side conversations to be like, hey, so how do we actually protect this environment, right? Like, you have to understand that, like, so the users are on there and it's like, it's free for all. Like, well, it's sort of free for all. The user can input any kind of data that they want into this environment. Like, do we want that? Do we need to educate them again, as far as like, hey, so this is built on the unclass environment, so keep it on the unclass level. Well, what does that mean? And then then all these things about IL2, IL5 of like, what, and not to get down that rabbit hole, is just like, there's a difference between sharing information that's okay in that environment versus that one is probably not the right kind of, and it's that was part of the marketing I think we didn't do a good job of, as far as like, hey, so what can you put on there and what you can't put on there?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a lot of these conversations early on about IL2 and IL5, and people are like, what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
The bottom to the layman, right? IL2, it was designed to be publicly releasable information, right? So it was not designed to be a place for CUI or FOUO, what it used to be, right? So it required a waiver. The DoD-CIO had to sign a waiver to say, I allow you to put CUI, which is the vast majority of our work in the unclassified realm, into this environment, right? But even then, right? So you got the department pushing out CUI, which is a change from FOUO, and so that's confusing in and of itself.
No, you're making it worse, bro. Stop.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, you got like, hey, what can I put in here? And you can put all this stuff except nuclear information and controlled technical information and PII and HIPAA. And no security forces, law enforcement information, and people just got confused, and some people clammed up. I'm not using it.
Yeah, because this is a trap. I think you're telling me these things that I don't know what you're saying. I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm just not going to use this tool, because that's funny, not funny. Like, you see it's the bright shiny object and it's really awesome. Then you're like, wait, what? And then I don't want to know all these rules. Can that just be a button that says, yes, this is compliant, and then just go? That didn't exist, or doesn't exist. And so it just made it harder. That was, I would say, is part of the bumps as far as new capabilities being rolled out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there could have been a better job done there. I would say one interesting data point, though, I always thought was, so some people that would get concerned about the security of it, which I'm glad, right? From being a cyber officer, I'm glad there are people that are concerned about security.
Yep.
But they were like, nope, I'm not using it. I'm going to use a regular old telephone line. And I'm like, explain this to me. If your cell phone on a regular old telephone line through a PSTN connection, you believe that's more secure than this environment which has cyber forces positioned against it. I don't understand that logic.
Yeah. I think there's also, I saw some interesting conversations as far as like, hey, so while this is at Doden, we talked about like, but that's all DoD information, right? Like, sure. Okay, we'll just say for our sake of argument, yes. And it's like, so then that's part of the Doden, and it's like, whoa, okay, that's a different kind of conversation to be like, because are you inferring that now you have certain authorities in this environment? Because I don't think that was not necessarily part of the initial conversation. Is allow people to communicate. That's what you want to do. And when you add a complex layer stating how do we get in there and actively defend that thing, that means that'd be like what we were talking about. One of the analogies was like, so when I pay my Verizon bill, I just want internet to work in this house. I don't get to be like, hey, show me the PCAPs, show me all the, like, they'll be like, get the fuck up, fuck yourself. No, I'm not going to show you anything. Do you have internet or not? Yes. Good day, sir. That's it. Like, it's not, does not oblige me to have additional deeper access to information. But there was definitely some, and legitimate concerns to be like, hey, so how do we actually do these? Because when you talk about the new kind of cloud information and those kind of stuff, like there's already they're teasing out some of these things that we're already interested in. So how do we kind of account for some of the defensive things that we know we want to have control over? And I know that there was a very much discomfort as far as, hey, so you got to be cool. If you're going to pay for it as a service, you just got to pay for it. That's it. And then like you have to trust on the other side. You can develop partnerships that, depending on how you draft the service level agreement, there's ways to smartly do it. But what are you trying to do? The speed versus security is always going to be one of those things that you're never going to, it's very difficult, I should say, to find that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah. So, you know, we're going a little bit off of the initial question here, but I'm going to nerd out. But I'll ask you, do you think this had to happen though? I mean, we were going to reach this point at some point, right?
Right.
You know, cloud services, everything's moving to an as a service, it's moving to the cloud, closing down data centers that we own locally and control every bit of. You know, we're going to be paying for more cloud storage services and access and apps that, you know, especially if we move into a zero trust environment, potentially. So did you think it's worthwhile? Did you think it drove the conversations that need to happen now versus waiting till a later date?
Yes, I definitely, I'm going to take a positive outlook on it. Like, it drove the difficult conversations right now. That way we start to kind of shape exactly what is going to be our risk tolerance as far as what should the DoD, what is going to be our relationship with industry? That's probably the easiest way to do it, because like if you think about in other nations, they have a very tight connection with their between the government and industry, and those have good and bad implications, right? And it just ends up becoming how are we going to get comfortable with making those partnerships with industry, and then relying on, hey, we're going to let you do those things because it's just too expensive for the Air Force and the DoD to do it on our own. Like, I don't need to create my own vehicle. I'm just going to go buy a vehicle off the market because just somebody is already, why would I going to do something organically when somebody already knows how to do it really, really well? So we borrow from industry. We do it all the time. But in our business, it's a little bit different because there's that hybrid relationship is very, very strong. It's not like you just pay for it and then it's an easy maintenance kind of system, something like that. No, we have to have a very close relationship because our business models are going to be so interlinked that like official tools need to have some sort of relationship that allows us, at least for the official ones anyway. And going back to the original question, official tools, how do those end up becoming good things? I think it's good, but for the airmen on the street, whatever it is, I think for them, they just like, hey, so we saw these things. Maybe I'm getting kind of weird about like what I'm allowed to use it or not use it. And then also, it was a whole thing of they saw all these good things, right? Oh, we can collaborate. It's better than SharePoint. Everything's integrated. I'm used to this now over like a year in telework. And then you get the news, hey, so this is going to go away in like 6 months. And then it's like, oh, wait, what? And there's definitely boos out there. People are like, why are you doing that? And so what did you see from your foxhole as far as where we introduced something even as an official tool, but then also was like, caveat, it's going to go away?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was a struggle in the beginning too, because it was meant to be temporary, but of course, COVID was meant to be temporary in the beginning as well. And so it was was only supposed to last 6 months in the beginning, and then it got these, these couple of extensions to get us through now June 15th, Doomsday, right? So I think it's been hugely successful, right? People love it. That's my assessment. Is that they're like, wow, this is an incredible capability. I love it. And you're right. And so now this news that it's it's no longer going to be extended. June 15th is the sunset date. It will shut down. I mean, if you go in right now, right, CBR Teams, it's got a countdown clock, right? It's the doomsday clock. You can check it every day. It's countdown seconds until it's gone. Letting you know that, hey, we're not backing out of this. So this is the event horizon right now. I mean, like I think at least 3 times this week I've been in conversations, and people are like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And if we have to go back to CAC, and if I have to, VPN, and if I lose my personal device, it's going to be catastrophic. I'm not going to be able to function, and impact productivity, and we can't have these meetings. And it is on everyone's mind right now. What are we going to do? This cool capability is going away, and then there's this emotional response too of like, wow, we've delivered these industry relevant tools. Why? Thank you, Calm. Thank you. Down. You gave us a taste of real life, and you're taking it away from us. So it's a significant emotional event coming up.
Yeah, definitely going to be. And I know there's either for the individual lowercase teams, or just how to smartly port over some of the information smartly, and also like port over some of like those. The way that we are able to collaborate and communicate with each other. That was the bigger thing. I don't care what the tool is. There was a new way that we found to efficiently communicate and do our job. So that's good. So you obviously want to retain those things. So moving on to the one of the next question I want to ask you. So you briefly mentioned about like, hey, so not only was CVR and some of those industry things it was being touted as the official tools out there, there's a bunch of already existing tools that are out there to communicate. And so you mentioned Slack, and then there's like WhatsApp. There's all kinds of places where teams across like any kind of business or group or environment, whatever it is, people gravitate towards. Like, nobody knew about Zoom. Like Zoom was also a thing of like, is there Zoom? There's Zoom Gov, like all those kind of, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either, but like, no, there's a clear way that we can do. We just had a Zoom. I attended a Zoom promotion ceremony. Senior Master Sergeant Smith just pinned on Chief right now this afternoon. So that's a good positive thing. That it better not, we were joking around before we recorded, every single e-invite now is going to better have a Zoom link. If it doesn't have a Zoom link, like, what are you guys doing? Like, I expect that to be there. And so what do you think about the unofficial things? They weren't necessarily touted on the official, correspondence coming out from leadership, but like where everybody just was gravitating towards potentially platforms that already existed, or they discovered things like, ooh, there's now these tools are actually even better than what the government was giving me, better than CVR or something like that. Why can't we use this one instead? What do you think are going to be the pros and cons to kind of weigh against those? I don't want to say unofficial, but they are, because they're not, officially labeled as a DoD kind of thing.
Yes, I mean, I think that the first thing is that airmen are going to gravitate to what works for them, right? And we've seen that, and I'll have to admit, I'm guilty of this myself. When I was in Guam, we had a lot of typhoons come through there, and we had to stay in communication during the typhoons. And basically, the way we were saying is, hey, use WhatsApp, and that's the way we're gonna, stay in communication for critical things during the typhoon. And it's not an official, it's not approved. We're essentially talking around some sensitive information sometimes in a commercial platform. That wasn't approved for any DoD use, and we were guilty of it, and I know that there's people across the force that have done that, but it was effective, right? It met the mission needs for what we had to do, so we could stay in communication during those times. So I think that's going to happen across the DoD, is people are going to find what works for them. So that's dangerous, right? In some ways, like I said, you end up talking around information, or you end up putting information that is sensitive, or when aggregated, so think about this. I was thinking about this just before we started, right? So in CVR, all of the services are in there right now, right? Lots of collaboration, lots of files out there. Imagine if that were compromised, and there was just a scrape done of every single file and every single chat that was in there. It might take some time, but adversaries could get a pretty clear picture of some very sensitive things, right? Even though independently it's all unclassified, but aggregate, it could get really dangerous. So same thing. So I got those concerns about the unofficial tools. So what do we do about that? Well, we've got to try and help our people find a way to communicate in the official tools. I know that's difficult, right? But that's my opinion. So you got to find out, this is leadership. It goes back to leadership. You got to find out, where are your airmen communicating right now? What are they using to communicate to do their official business, right? I'm not talking about their personal business, right?
Sure.
Where are they communicating on to do their official business? And then start to ask those questions like, well, why aren't you using the official tool? This is the official tool. Does it not meet your needs? And try to have that understanding of what your mission requirements are, what your airmen think the mission requirements are to get their job done, how they can communicate that. And then you got to try and find that tool that works for you. It could be Office 365 Teams. It may not work for you though, for an flight line aspect or an AFSOC aspect. Right. That's where Wicker RAM, as approved, could be a potential alternative. It doesn't have all the file sharing and the productivity capabilities, but it has some level of semi-secure communications capabilities available on mobile devices. So you need to analyze your mission, your requirements, and what is the most efficient and effective for your people, in my opinion.
Yeah, that analysis is going to be the biggest thing. It's just having conversations. I think there'd be like I just thought about this. So the idea where like, hey, so I'm just used to using like Slack, for instance. Let's just join Slack and be like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, sometimes there's a benefit to having your own area to communicate. Like, I don't want to hear about your personal kind of stuff, because you never know. Like it's like our kids, they have a Discord. They have a Discord server that like all the cousins talk about whatever they're talking about. I honestly do not want to see any of that. Like, I know that it exists and that's cool. And that's for cousin talk. That's not for family talk, because they should be able to communicate. And that's that kind of information. But if we're talking about, hey, so maybe we want to get together and do like a plan on a gift for Aunt Steph, or do some kind of birthday party, like, yeah, that's an appropriate larger family conversation. So let's have a platform for that where we can have those things. And so to your point earlier, yeah, so we used to have just group texts. All my leadership, like when we were doing like the earthquake in Alaska, we had a pre-existing group text, and we were just like, where is everybody? Yep, cool. Building is accounted for. Build is accounted for. I'm going to this way. And it was real time. And we had to do that. I'm not going to go log on to something, whatever it is. And so like in the time in that specific environment and situation, that's what's worked. So that's what we're going to use. And then from then on, it was an easy thing. We were talking about like that group text existed for a long time of just like, hey, so what's the road conditions, or reporting to this? Has anybody seen the boss? Like, hey, oh, I'm over here. Don't bother me. Like there's ways that we can have those unofficial communication, but then we understood that like, yeah, so we're going to talk about these things on Nipper or whatever platform is going to be, because that's where it should be. And so I think being open-minded to your earlier comments of being like open-minded to just kind of taking another look at your business and your team and how you guys interface with each other, and then just kind of understanding like, this is going to be, these work cool for these ideas, and then these other ones really need to be, and to your point about leadership, someone's get to make the decision. That's the benefit of our you can call it benefit, or you can call it a detriment. It's a benefit of our structure that like someone gets to make a decision and be like, hey, we're going to use this tool for this. This is where we're going to be at. And I need everybody to kind of gather here. And here's what we can talk about there. He's not saying don't use other stuff, but like this business definitely needs to be conducted here. And I want to make sure, because it has the built-in security things, has a built-in support that makes it flexible for everybody, yet is appropriate for the subject matter we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me give an example here from the 857. So last summer, we got a new boss, Lieutenant General High Note, and he came into the 857, and he was all in. He said he wants to get away from email. He wants to use the collaboration tools, and so we do all of our business in CVR Teams, right? All of our meetings are there, all of our collaboration is there. There was a decent amount of time spent from the what we call the orchestration layer, the front office, designing that interface and building out the teams and the layers to the teams. And it's pretty complex the way they designed it, but it's efficient. But more importantly is the boss promoted it and expected it, right? he signed a document that said, this is how we're going to communicate. And it was in the PACE format, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Primary,
Okay.
he signed, this is our PACE plan. Primary is CVR team. Alternate is matter most. Contingency is email. And emergency is telephone. And he's like, that's how we will communicate. And he signed it and he put it out there. And that expectation was clear.
Yeah.
And it made it
awesome.
very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to woo. Oh, that's really good. Especially when you talk about pace, like Jesus. Okay. First of all, you use an acronym, so automatically I'm paying attention. Second, like it just kind of it cleanly organizes and prioritizes, like, no, here's what we're going to do. And I think it removes you can not like it. Noted. This is where we're going. And I think and especially for the uniform people, like, no, this is easy. Like, I'm going to get in here. That puts the onus on you as the individual airman or the service member to get spun up on that and understand how to use it. I think the telework environment has gotten people to adopt things a little bit quicker, to be like, it's not so scary. Or the marketing material is just better. Be like, hey, so you're going to have to learn how to do this. Here's what this means, how to do these capabilities. It's like learning any kind of new program, any new skill set or something like that. The information is out there. You just have to it takes leadership to kind of drive that catalyst. But like, you really want to get in here because this is where I'm at. And so make sure you're keeping up with me. And then the team will naturally gravitate towards those.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all comes back to leadership, right? It's understanding your mission, where are we going to communicate, making it clear to your people so it's not confusing, and then you got to promote it, right? You have to promote it. If the people see that you're in there and you're using it, right, lead by example, you're right. They're going to gravitate towards it because that's where the leadership is.
Yes,
that's where the conversations are happening.
That's where you're the champion for this platform. You're not just talking about it. You're like, it'd be weird if you laid out the pace and then you went to C. Like, what the fuck? I thought you said you're gonna do P. Like that would be arguably, email should just be dead. Like, just kill email altogether. But there's a function and it's a necessary evil, and I get it. But like, the idea of you gotta match it with your actions, right? You gotta make sure if you're gonna say don't use email, you for real mean don't use email. And then at least that's not where the primary stuff is. I really, really like that model. So that's good. So I think kind of wrapping this up, the original question is, so what do you think, how should leaders approach returning back to a majority of the workforce going back into coming off of max telework and returning back into the physical spaces? The answer is, first of all, which tool should you use? The tool you should use is the one that works. That's the one you should use. And then the underlying thing in that is just leadership. You as a leader are responsible to understanding your team, understanding your mission and your processes, and then lead, make some decisions, gather inputs, figure out what's going to be the best and what are some of the challenges, and then see how you can just continue to move forward. Because we're used to just kind of it's a pickup game. We're just doing stuff as we go along, and some things maybe just kind of had some hiccups earlier, but I think there's some definite positive things we want to retain, and let's move those things forward.
Yep, absolutely. The only caveat I say is official. So encourage you to use official tools.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Absolutely. And I think the great thing though is through the last year, we've played around with a lot of these tools now, right? So there's very few of them that I think that are new. They're all similar, they just have different nuances. So it's just, again, mission analysis, people analysis, and leadership.
Yep.
And make it clear and go with it.
Yeah, I think the official tool things they're there for a reason. Like, and as far as this is a unclass podcast bullshit show that I just talk about some things. You can just you can just find things on the internet to be like, this is the reason why you want to use these tools, that just because the other tools may or may not be protected. So there's a reason why we're selecting these. So you can at least trust on that pieces. And then we continue to move forward from there. So that's a easy, awesome way to think about it. All right, Kyle, I'll offer you some, if you have any final comments. Again, thank you I forgot to mention, dude, I totally forgot to, I planned on doing this at the beginning to embarrass you, but then it's going to be at the end of the episode. So congratulations. You're actually Colonel Select. It's still a Lieutenant Colonel, But congratulations on being picked up for Colonel this board. I appreciate you sending me some insight as far as you getting select this year. I'm going to meet my board in July, and then hopefully I'll get to share our virtual drink with you as well. And so, but yeah, I want to say congratulations on that.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude.
It's a good start to 2021.
Yeah. So yeah, any final comments? You can talk about like this the challenges as far as not even challenge, it's opportunities. It is. All of it is opportunities. There's definite things that we can move forward for, we can carry over for max telework. Let's be cognizant of the environment that we're in and where we need to protect our information and how we need to move forward. But just those are all positive things. There's just kind of things we can think about. But yeah, I'll offer you some final comments.
Oh, thanks. I think my final comment just be is like, let's continue the trend, right? Let's continue the collaboration in the new tools. I am so against email.
Me too.
I think it's so 1995. It was cool back then. It had its purpose. Let's move on and keep the momentum going, and let's not go back. And if you've seen, I'm pretty active on our Career Field Facebook page. I'm pretty active on the CVR Career Field Teams page, and I'm really trying to communicate, keep the information flowing. In my experience, and I'm sure you've seen this too, the information was not flowing from the A26 or the CIO down to MAGCOM A6s, down to the comm squadron commanders, down to the flight chiefs. It wasn't flowing, or it wasn't flowing in a timely fashion, in my experience. So I really want to, it's my crusade. I want to break that model. I want to keep the collaboration going. Let's have live and real-time conversations. Let's share information. We have a lot to learn from each other across our career field, across the Air Force, right? Across all of our mission sets. And we have some amazing tools that are going to enable us to continue that trend. And it's a great time to be in the Air Force.
That's right. That's right.
There's no shortage of challenges. There's no shortage of opportunities. Step up. Let's talk about it. Let's get some stuff done.
Yeah, man. Gainfully employed. That's why that's why I still want to be in the Air Force. I think there's going to be some positive things. Yes, you're very, very active. One of the real quick thing, us as cyberspace operations officers, we sort of have to default, kind of adopt that role to be like, if no one else is talking about it and we work in a non-cyber environment, then by default, we have to talk about it. We should be the ones championing. We should be the ones advocating, like, why is this actually important? And within the 17X Facebook page, I know we do a great job of sharing kind of some of those materials. I take some of those things back and be like, at least for the Air Force perspective, be like, hey, so this is what we're talking about as airmen. What do you want to do this here in Doden? And so if you're at the wing level or whatever it is, you as the resident comm squadron guy or gal, you have a prime opportunity. You have a prime opportunity to have a significant impact to your wing, to your organization, to be like, hey, so here's the things, and smartly lead them through that. Don't tell them what to do. Just, don't be prescriptive. Here's some things that you want to think about and how you can do it. If you have questions, those questions can be answered very nuanced, and they probably should be, depending on the mission. Like you said, what are you trying to do? How does your team communicate? And not that you're going to sign up for that kind of work, but like prompt those kind of conversations, because they're important. And you're going to find the positive things, but you can be a champion for it versus the old 33S punching bag. Like, thanks, comm. Fuck you guys. You guys are just being that guys and just kind of giving me stuff and take it away. Giving me stuff, taken away. Like, no, we're better than that. We actually are enabling so many missions out there, and we need to be okay with that role and take advantage of it.
I agree. This is a great time to be a comm squadron commander, right?
Yeah.
Your wing commanders are looking at you going, I see 15 June. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
That's
and
right.
They're looking to you. So lead.
Yep. Right? Hey, yeah. Hell yeah. Fuck. God. So awesome. We should go back in time. We'd be back in Alaska and Guam. That'd be really not cool, because I'm good where I'm at now, but like not really in Maryland, but that's beside the point. Kyle, thank you for joining this week's episode. It was a great conversation. Like I said, we could probably keep on waxing philosophical on this, but I think we hit the high points. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good opportunities that we can carry forward here. And I think you gave some great insight. This will be posted to the 17X page and then various places, just to kind of prompt those conversations. Like, hey, so this is not a 15 June, although it does have a doomsday clock associated with it. use that as just your milestone to be like, hey, so what new things are we going to adopt from here? How do we retain the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff, because the bad stuff just doesn't need to be there. So all good stuff, all good opportunities. So okay, team. So Constant Elevation, I appreciate you guys tuning in this week. And yeah, Kyle, again, thanks again. And we'll talk to everybody next week. Peace.
Thanks for having me.
All right.